Good morning. It's been a great week here, and I hope last night was terrific. Just welcome you all to this meeting of the State Bar. Members of the council are hereby advised of their duty under the State Government Ethics Act to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflict, and are instructed to refrain from participating in any matter coming before this council with respect to which there is a conflict of interest or appearance of conflict. Is there any to be noted at this time? Thank you. I'm going to ask our Vice President, Marcy Armstrong, to open us with, please.
May we pray. Merciful Heavenly Father, when there is a need for teaching, teach through me. When there is a need for a message, speak through me. When there is a need for music, sing through me. When there is a need for understanding, listen through me. When there is a need for counseling, advise through me. When a gift is needed, give through me. Whenever prayer is needed, pray through me. When a helping hand is needed, reach through mine. Amen.
Amen. Pleased to have with us this morning Chief Justice Paul Murphy and his wife Macon. Thank you. And we have heard from him virtually at our last few meetings, but we are just so happy to have him live and in person. So let's welcome him for some remarks.
Thank y'all. I was reminded this morning, it's such beautiful views from our hotel here. I saw the courthouse where I guess it would have been in early September 1980. I took my oath as an attorney, and there were 11 of us, or 12 of us, 11 others that day that took an oath to uphold the laws in these documents. State Constitution, Federal Constitution, very different documents, very different purposes. Nonetheless, they are constitutions. When I think of Constitution, I think of Tip O'Neill's remark, "Oh, come on, what are constitutions among friends?" They are our polar star. They are our guidance. So in 1868, the State Constitutional Convention got underway. There had been a prior attempt in 1867 to revise the state constitution, which had failed. And in this particular constitutional convention, 20% of the delegates were freed African Americans. Think about that. 1865, illegal to teach folks that were enslaved to read and write. 3 years later, 20% of the delegates were freed African Americans. 20% were from the North. Imagine that. In North Carolina, we have Northerners down here, y'all. So 20%, and they struggled to find the right balance with regard to bringing together a broken state. And as they did so, the first thing they did was put into place the preamble to their state constitution, a good foundational place where folks could agree. And it says this, it says, "We, the people of the state of North Carolina, grateful to Almighty God, the sovereign ruler of nations, for the preservation of the American Union and the existence of our civil, political, and religious liberties, and acknowledging our dependence upon Him for the continuation of His blessings to us and to our posterity." They went on as they set out their Declaration of Rights, which frankly dated back to the 1776 Constitution, where on December the 17th, the legislature adopted the Declaration of Rights, went home for the day, came back on December the 18th, and adopted the structure of government portion of our state constitution. Similarly, the 1868 Constitutional Convention took the Declaration of Rights is this next task. Article 1, Section 1 sounds pretty familiar. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Life, liberty. As we know, Jefferson said, pursuit of happiness. But wait, in North Carolina, we can improve these things, right? We said that folks are entitled to the fruits of their own labor and pursuit of happiness. Why would we say that? Recognizing the dignity of all work and the immorality of slavery, because now you work, you're entitled to your wages, and you're entitled to enjoy those wages. We go on in our state constitution to say that all political power is vested in we the people, and we exercise that power as a representative republic. And finally, we get to Article 1, Section 18, that says the courts shall be open. And it goes on to say, echoing the words from the Magna Carta, 1215, where it says, justice shall be administered without favor, without denial, without delay. Article 1, Section 19, no one can be deprived of life, liberty, property without the law of the land. Again, echoing the language from the Magna Carta. And it goes on to say, we added that there will be equal justice. These are our guiding principles. Courts shall be open, justice administered without favor, denial, delay. I, as many of you have had opportunities to speak to various school groups. I was talking to a bunch of fifth graders, and I talked to them about the emblem of justice that's on my pen. It has Lady Justice blindfolded, scale of justice, sword of justice, but she's blindfolded. Can't see who comes before her, rich, poor, powerful, not powerful, everybody treated the same. A little fifth grade kid goes, "Hey, Justice Newby, what's it like to wear a blindfold at work all day?" I loved his literalism. That's the way it's supposed to be. And I know all of you had at least some portion of the thinking that you chose to go to law school because you recognize the importance of these fundamental rights and freedoms. Invariably, I'm entertaining folks at our court through the Open World program, Library of Congress, from all over European nations, judges, lawyers, and actually Asian nations as well. And we're talking about the rule of law and how a judicial system can get the reputation of following the rule of law. I was challenged by a Chinese judge. He said, "Your jury system is the most inefficient thing imaginable." Now, put it in perspective, 10% of the world have jury trials, 90% have judge trials, okay? Guess where the corruption is. But anyway, so jury system. And this Chinese judge is saying, have your folks done a calculation about the cost of a jury trial and how inefficient it is? And I said, well, you're probably right that nobody has really calculated that cost. But with all due respect, I'll take that inefficiency every day to the justice that gets rendered through a jury system. Folks, we don't have a perfect system. When I'm talking to judges, I generally get booed for saying this, but there are no perfect judges. There are no perfect, lawyers. There are no perfect jurors. There are no perfect, this will shock you, clients. Have any of you ever had a client who the first time you met with them was totally transparent about their cases? I tell young lawyers the best a case will ever look is the first time you meet with your client. It only goes downhill from there, folks. That's part of the system as we seek truth and as we apply the law to those things. So as y'all represent, okay, much like all political power resides in the people, we have a representative republic. That's what y'all are. You have been deemed by your colleagues to be worthy to represent them with our governing organization, the State Bar. That is an honor that I hope you cherish. And I know you do. And I know because of your hard work that you understand what a significant responsibility that is. As my dear friend Patty Head said, we got to leave the campsite better than we found it. And that's what we're striving to do. Very quickly, with regard to the Supreme Court, of course, the big issue was the pandemic. How are we going to deal with that? We've had some innovations that have occurred, which we've been able to capture through a law that was passed by the General Assembly, signed by the governor, with regard to ongoing use of technology. Trey Allen, who's my general counsel at the Administrative Office of the Courts, and the folks there are working on giving guidance to the trial judges and to the appellate judges about how we can use this tool. I envision that if the parties come to the Supreme Court and say, we, for a variety of reasons, maybe our clients don't want to pay for us to come to Raleigh, but for a variety of reasons, we want to hear this case virtually, and there's consensus by both sides, I can see us doing that going forward. We will meet for the first time in person since February 2020 as a court. We're going to do that in August with our August calendar, the last week of August. And you're going to see some innovations there. But a lot of this has been COVID driven. First off, it's going to be live streamed. Court shall be open. First time ever, you can sit back at home, watch the arguments of your colleagues at the Supreme Court. Yes, well, you could do that when we were totally virtually, but now we're going to be in person. You're going to be able to do that. So, the good news, bad news is your clients can also watch you as you argue at the Supreme Court of North Carolina. We're going to, unlike in the past where we say everybody show up at 9:30 and we'll get to your case when we do, we're going to have 9:30, 10:40. We're going to have actual times for people to show up. We're going to come down off the bench and shake hands with attorneys after every argument. Why? I'm seeing a breakdown of civility. I don't know if y'all are seeing this breakdown of professionalism. One side says, hey, we're the good guys. If we're good guys, you've got to be the bad guys. I can't believe you would even represent the bad guys. That must make you a bad, just a lot of tension among counsel. And we want to show, again, demonstrate professionalism that, hey, we're here to try to figure out what the law is. Has nothing to do with you personally, has nothing to do with your client. It's just, we've got to delve into the law with regard to this case. But we're going to come down and shake your hand and say you did a great job, whether you did or not. We're going to hopefully demonstrate civility. The big challenge that we're going to have is e-courts. It's not something that I vetted. One of my predecessors did that. It's not something I signed a contract on. One of my predecessors did that. Tyler Technology is the group that was chosen. Tyler Technology is the largest provider of e-court type stuff across the nation. Nonetheless, they have missed some deadlines. We're having some very, very, very serious contract negotiations and talking about money that they owe us for having missed some deadlines. So as I've worked with them, and certainly the Administrative Office of the Courts, Judge Drew Heath is doing a great job there. I'd rather be late and have a great product that we all can stand behind than to meet artificial deadlines and have something not ready for prime time. So what I want to tell y'all is we're not going to roll this out till it's ready. And it will be ready. And when it is, we're going to roll it out. Again, I hate missing deadlines. That's not something, I like to be timely with these things, but I'd rather have the product do precisely what it needs to do. And so, my best estimate right now is we probably won't do the pilot districts until around September. But, again, it's got to be a product that's ready as we have a seamless e-filing system. And education is going to be key. Okay, I'm a dinosaur. You say technology, my eyes glaze over. It's like, okay, where is a young person? Tell me what to do next, what button to push. Training is going to be key to get the buy-in from everybody. got to have a great product, got to be properly trained. So we're going to do that for y'all. I'm trying to visit all 100 counties. I want to thank all the staff folks. I'm traveling from Murphy to Manteo. For those of you that don't know, Asheville is not the western portion of North Carolina. It goes on for 2 hours plus. So I've been to 11 of the western counties plus the Cherokee Nation, and wanting to thank all the folks for their effort to keep the courts open during COVID, particularly March, April, May, when, hey, what is this stuff? Is it going to kill you? You know, yet deputy clerks, magistrates, these folks are showing up day in, day out to provide as best they can open courts. I want to thank them for that, and also thank them for accepting, like they had any choice, the challenge of e-courts, because it is coming. I've tried to work through the state bar counselors as I visit courthouses in your area, and we'll continue to do that as over the next year and a half we visit all the courthouses. Thank you for what y'all do. What a time of cultural turmoil, and yet we in the judicial branch, those of us who are part of the courts and the rule of law, it's our job to help folks understand that while our system can be improved, my opinion, is still the best system in the world. If I had a civil or criminal case and could pick to be tried in any jurisdiction, I would choose America. I love our jury system. I love the various checks and balances within. And I hope that we're able to communicate to folks that, again, not a perfect system, but folks, it is a system that by and large has been successful in enforcing, following the rule of law. Again, as we look at our profession, one thing I would ask y'all is to think about 3 changes I would love to see in the next 6 years to make our profession better. I know for me as a recovering civil attorney, you know, the whole idea of discovery sends shivers down my spine. How can we make that better? Folks, we got to challenge young lawyers. 33% pre-COVID were wrestling with substance abuse, 33%. The national average is 11. And that's pre-COVID, post-COVID. I'm sure it's gotten worse. We live in a world of gray. We live in a world of conflict. Practicing law is a high calling. We are there, everybody, regardless of what area you practice in, to protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. You want to be sure, as Martin Luther King Jr. said, that this promissory note is actually valid for every person in our culture and our society. But we live in gray worlds. What's the law? Come on, tell me what the law is. Well, we don't know until it gets to the Supreme Court and see how they rule on it. We live in a world of conflict with, okay, zealously representing my client means different things to different folks. We live in a world, frankly, that particularly our legal community, we need to be practicing the golden rule, treating others the way we want to be treated. Hopefully I know y'all are looking at various changes that structurally can be made. I know we're certainly at the court looking at those things as well. But I want you to be encouraged that my opinion is we're part of the best legal system in the world. And one other thing I'll say is we're doing an assessment of courthouse security. Judge Fred Gore from the Court of Appeals is handling a committee to commission to look at that, particularly in the rural counties. Recently, we've had several judges who have been threatened. And folks, that's not the way the system's supposed to work. We have an incredible appellate process that takes care of any decisions by trial courts that are erroneous. We ought not be threatening the judge and his family and that type of thing. Certainly, we ought not be threatening the lawyers that represent one side or the other. We want to be sure that within the confines of what we do, and frankly, my hope would be for all of society, that we can have civil discussions about some very significant issues. I use my court as an example. You couldn't have a more diverse court in any way you want to define diversity. And yet the 7 of us get behind our closed doors. We have open discussions about the issues and about the law, not about the personalities. The beauty is you decide one case and you've got one coalition, and the next case, you don't want to say anything bad about somebody because you're going to need their vote in the next case, all right? My belief is our legal profession, certainly the way I grew up in the profession from 1980 here in Asheville, is everything you do, you're creating a reputation for yourself. And you want to be sure that at the end of the day, your reputation is for integrity and honor, integrity first, service before self, excellence in all that you do. I'm hoping, I'm praying that our profession will exemplify integrity first, service before self, excellence in all that we do in our practice of law, that we'll extend grace to one another because life is tough. Whether you're a lawyer or not a lawyer, life is tough. And that, again, we treat others the way that we want to be treated. So I thank you for everything you do. I look forward to continuing in partnership with y'all as you represent lawyers across the state, and we seek to bring the proper leadership to our practice of law and, yes, to the judicial branch. Thank you.
I want to welcome some of our friends from the North Carolina Bar Association who are with us today. We have the double past president, Leanne Neese Brown, immediate past president, Mark Holt. We have the president-elect, Clayton Morgan, and the newly sworn-in president, John Heil. And at this moment, I'd like to ask John if he would come up and make some remarks.
Good morning. Thank you, Barbara, and thank you for having me and us. We are really pleased to be here. I'm going to very briefly fill you in on what the Bar Association is doing for the coming year. We just had our annual meeting about 3 weeks ago where it was virtual for the second consecutive time. We had a lot of people who put in a lot of hard work to make that best program it could be. And I think it was, but we are hopeful that we never have to do that again. We are starting our new bar year, and so we have several new initiatives or continuing initiatives, and I want to just briefly go through those with you to let you know what's going on. So 3 main priorities. First is reopening, reintegrating, and what I call re-emerging into the world of in-person meetings. We will begin our section and committee and division meetings, meeting in person again beginning next month. We will go with the in-person CLE beginning in October again. That has not been in person for almost 1.5 years. We do envision that there will be some hybrid nature to our meetings going forward, echoing what the Chief Justice said. There have been changes that have been brought by COVID that can be very productive and efficiency enhancing. And we envision that while we will have the opportunity to be in person and enjoy being in person, that we will also have a lot of participation virtually, and that's great. Anything that increases our participation and enables us to bring more people into the tent, we feel is a good thing. We also will have the fall board meeting back in person again due to, for the first time since January, the CLE is delayed a little bit, as I said, until October, just because of the lead time it takes in planning those. There's a 90 to 120 day lead time in planning a CLE and doing it right. And so that's why we're giving ourselves a little more time on that front. Second main priority is continuing our work that grew out of the report on systemic racism that we published last year, detailing the history of the Bar Association and some of the unfortunate events of our past. What came out of that were two task forces, one on the association side, one on the foundation side. The association side is continuing to look into the history, both during the founding time and during the time of integration during the 60s and 70s, and figuring out what we can do to be better in that regard. On the foundation side, we are looking at our justice funds and the diversity and inclusion that is evident within those funds. And we are looking at coming up with new foundation programs to address diversity and inclusion. We also have a standing diversity and inclusion task force that was started last year by Mark Holt. They are continuing their work to advise us on the best ways to bring our organization forward. Our third main priority, my third main priority, is some fairly significant restructuring of governance and bylaws. While I realize you'd probably be fascinated to hear the details of that, I will spare you that this morning. We are continuing, of course, with our foundation programs. Our foundation staff did a fantastic job during the pandemic of adapting to a virtual world at the same time that there was incredibly increased need and coming up with new programs and new ways to serve the public of North Carolina. We are looking forward to bringing some of those things back in person again. For example, our Wheels for Heroes program will be back in person. We will go back to our annual For All lawyer call-in service day statewide. We hope to have that back in in-person format again. That is one of the things that we think will be and will benefit from a hybrid structure. We had all virtual last year, and by necessity, and we're still able to serve approximately 10,000 callers on one day. And we think with keeping that virtual system in place and pairing it with our traditional in-person events, which we really like, and I think really portrays a good image of the profession to the state, to see lots of lawyers shoulder to shoulder answering phones. We think with a combination model like that, we can have a really good service day. We are also continuing our usual state and federal legislative efforts through the association side. On the state level, we are advancing a number of statutory provisions and structures that our sections typically push through, but we think we're making good progress in that regard. We are also working on a referendum for a constitutional amendment to remove the literacy test from the Constitution, a Jim Crow relic. That's another thing that came out of our task force and our report on the systemic racism. Really like to thank all of you for having us. I knew some of you already. Had the pleasure of meeting a number of you last night, and certainly we all look forward to working with you in the coming year. So thank you, Barbara. Thank you all for having us, and we appreciate you being.
Thank you. This time I'd like to ask our General Counsel, Catherine Jean, to come forward. The matter of a surrender of license. Morning.
Thank you, Madam President. You have in your materials an affidavit of surrender of the law license of Roydera Hackworth. Ms. Hackworth has acknowledged that while she was suspended from the practice of law for disciplinary reasons, she continued to engage in the practice of law, that she forged the name of a lawyer who was eligible to practice law on some immigration orders, and that she held herself out to clients as able to engage in the practice of law. She's also acknowledged that she has entered into a plea agreement with the United States Attorney, pursuant to which she is going to plead guilty to one count of filing a fraudulent naturalization application and notice of representation, a federal felony. I have reviewed the affidavit. I conclude that it is an appropriate form and that the misconduct for which to which she has admitted warrants disbarment, particularly in light of her extensive disciplinary history. I ask the council to enter an order of disbarment to tax the costs and the administrative fees against Ms. Hackworth. Thank you.
Do we have a motion to accept the surrender of the license and enter the order? Motion. Have a second? Thank you. Any discussion or questions? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Those opposed? Okay, thank you. Ms. Jean, if you will just stay right there.
Okay, yes.
And,
May I hand these to you?
yes, thank you. And I'll ask that you give us your report.
Yes, ma'am. You also have in your materials a report of the activities of the Office of Counsel during the last quarter, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about that. Nobody ever asked me any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I will ask all our subsequent presenters to take note, please. I am first, yes. We will move into the executive committee report, and our first item of business is approval of the council meetings minutes from the last meeting. So those are in your materials. I have a motion for approval of the minutes. Second. Any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye. Those opposed? Thank you. At this moment, I'm going to turn it over to Darren for our financial report.
The financial statements for the second quarter of 2021 are posted in SharePoint. The Finance and Audit Committee reviewed those and find them in order, and we would make a recommendation to the council that they accept and adopt those. That would be our request.
This motion requires no second. Are there any discussions, questions? All in favor, say aye. Those opposed? Thank you.
Each year, the State Bar Council has to engage an independent auditor for our financial records. Last year, we had Bernard Robinson and Company. We reviewed that proposal from Bernard Robinson and Company for the coming year. We find that to be in order, and we are recommending to the council that we engage Bernard Robinson and Company again for the coming year's financial record and audit.
A motion to select Bernard Robinson as the auditor. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
If you'll continue, Darren, and give us the report of the Appointments Advisory Committee.
The Appointment Advisory Committee had 3 boards that we needed to consider for individuals to be appointed. The first one was the Disciplinary Hearing Commission. The Advisory Appointments Committee recommends the appointing of Jay Meyer to complete Allison Tomberlin's term, and that would be a completed term of about 11 and a half months. So that would be our recommendation to the council.
Any discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay.
The next board that we considered was the Board of Legal Specialization. We recommend the following. We appointing Patty Head to a 3-year term on the board. She is a public member for that board. We recommend appointing Barbara Morgenstern and Gina Camerano to serve a 3-year term on the board. Both of them are legal specialists, and there's a requirement that we have a legal specialist in those positions. We also recommend appointing Kim Coward to serve a 1-year term as chair. And what that does is Kim Coward would be coming off that board, but because the rules allow that if she's serving as chair, she gets to serve for 1 additional year. And we finally recommend appointing Jan Pritchard to serve a 1-year term as vice chair. That would be the recommendation and a motion from the Appointments Advisory Commission.
Thank you, Darren. Any questions about that? So we will be voting on appointment of Patty Head, Barbara Morgenstern, Gina Camerino, and the appointment of Kim Coward for an additional year, and Kim as chair, Jan Pritchett as vice chair. Patty, I see you sitting there, and I assume you're going to recuse yourself from this vote. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The last board we considered appointments for is the IOLTA Board of Trustees. The Advisory Appointments Committee recommends the following: that we appoint Ted Edwards, Sharika Shropshire, and Jacob Kyle Smith to serve a 3-year term on those boards. We also recommend the reappointing of Maria Massey to serve a 1-year term as chair of that board. And we recommend the appointing of Shelby Benton to serve a 1-year term as vice chair of that board.
Thank you. And I'll note that Ted Edwards has asked to be with you.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
That would be our report.
Thank you, Darren.
Yes.
We now have some rule amendments that were published for comment after our April meeting, and they are now on for consideration and adoption by the council. And I'm going to take some of these together in one, and then we'll look at the others. So we have proposed amendments to the discipline and disability rules, and also to the rules of the administrative committee that provide certain requirements that have to be met if a lawyer has been inactive for more than 7 years. And then we have some proposed amendments to the rules governing the continuing legal education program. And all of this was in your materials. And as to these 3 rules, there were no comments received. Unless someone wants to consider them separately, I would entertain a motion for adoption as to all of those rules. We have a motion and a second. Any questions, discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Then we have the proposed amendment to the preamble, and that is has been published in your material. And this is to add language to the preamble that discusses that all persons should be encountered in a professional capacity should be treated equally, courteously, and respectfully, with dignity. And the full text of that's published in your materials. There were comments received on this. They were considered by the committee, and this was approved by executive committee yesterday. And it is, I will entertain a motion for adoption by the council. Second? Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. And we have some proposed rule amendments that we are proposing for publication. And the first are some proposed amendments to the standards for certification as a specialist in criminal law. Do I have a motion for publication? Second? Okay. Any questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, thank you. That concludes the report of the executive committee. I'll ask Everett Thompson to come up and make the report of the administrator.
You follow the directions.
There you go. All right. Well, I'm here to give you the report we have for the administrative committee. In your package, you have the full report. You got all the names and what we did for each one of them. I'm not going to read all that because we'd be here until after 12 o'clock. The first thing that we looked at was a petition for transfer to inactive status. And we had 89 lawyers transferred to inactive status, and 15 of those were granted upon fulfilling their requirements. In other words, pay some money. 6 were granted nunc pro tunc, which meant that their inactive status was effective as of the end of December of last year. So 6 of those. We had petition for reinstatement from inactive status. We had 16 lawyers that were reinstated from inactive status. We had petition for reinstatement from suspended status, and there's 3 lawyers were granted reinstatement. 1 petition has been delayed and going to be heard in October. We had a petition for a pro bono practice for an out-of-state lawyer, just 1, and we approved that in our committee. And then we had a petition for relinquishment of membership. That is, giving up your membership, not going inactive, but just giving it up. And there was 2 lawyers that we approved on that. We also had a bylaws for Judicial District 26, and we recommended that the council grant that. Now, of those that we just looked over, they will need approval by the council. So do I need to ask for that vote?
Yes.
Huh?
Yeah, we can.
Well, yeah, that's what I want to do. The whole report would be
All
moved into acceptance by the full council.
So we have a motion for approval of the report of the administrative committee. Does not need a second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye. Those opposed?
Okay, and as part of the report that you do have in your pack, full report, you're also going to have a list of lawyers who would be given notices, show cause, or suspension orders. There's over 1,000 lawyers in that list. And what we suggest to you is that if there's any in that list that are in your district, you might give them a call or contact them some way to tell them what's going on so they can take action to fix it, so that then the show cause order doesn't have to go out, or the suspension order doesn't have to go out. There'll be an asterisk by some names. You don't need to contact that person. Now, if there's any question that comes up from those people, and you could tell them to call Deborah Holland, who is the managing director of CLE. If it's a local issue, then they have to contact the local judicial district. But if there's any other questions, they could contact Tammy Jackson, because she's the director of membership. And I'm pretty much done with that unless someone has any questions for me.
Thank you, Everett.
All right, thank y'all.
Question.
Yes, Dorothy.
Well, you could do it next week, but I forgot to mention that Tammy Jackson will be sending out an update of that list if payments were made in the meantime. In other words, if something got paid tomorrow or Monday, then that person doesn't need a call, and you may get an updated notice. But typically what I do is the week after the meeting, I call the lawyers in my district and just give them a heads up. Now, if they've already done it, already paid their money, then it's no big deal. I'm sorry.
What Peter said was by the end of the month, beginning of August, would be about when the notices would be going out.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Take care.
Staff would be very grateful if you could narrow that list down. Andrea Capua to give us the report of the Authorized Practice Committee.
Good morning. There's no way I'm going to beat Catherine with timing, but this should be short. So the committee met, and here are the statistics. We had reviewed 16 complaints and inquiries for action. 14 letters of caution were issued. One matter was referred to a regulatory agency. One matter was dismissed. One matter we voted not to take any action. There were 11 prepaid legal plans registered and 18 pairs of shoes purchased at Tops.
All right. I think you
I had to
might
come
be a
up with-
little low on that.
I do not need to move for acceptance of the report, so enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you, Andrew. I'll ask Dorothy to come up and give us the report of the Communications Committee.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I have the joy of chairing the Communications Committee, and we have met. And I will say and echo what everyone else has said, that it is so good to be able to meet with you all in person. While we might like communicating on Zoom and WebEx and all of that, it's much better to be able to see you and give you a hug, a high five or something, throw something your way, something. All right, so the report I have is that there has been some live streaming that took place in the second quarter. An Ethics Council meeting, Specialization Board event was live streamed that went really, really well. We had 2 podcasts that were broadcast, and one was on an ethics review. We had 45 listeners. I don't think that number has gone up yet. And then an April meeting recap, and we had 60 listeners for that one. So we need you all to go listen so those numbers can increase. We will have some interviews of some of the Distinguished Service Award recipients. Those will come soon, so be on the lookout or listen out for those. And if you have any ideas for any future podcast topics, we would love to give those to us because we would like to have more of those. We are also working on a communication plan. There's a new database and web portal that will be released soon. And so there's a communication plan that Brian and Peter are working on so that we can make sure that our members know about that new portal and database and know how to work it and get online and do all of that good stuff. And it would include it's pretty much a one-stop place for all our bar dues and all our compliance matters. We also continue to encourage you all to communicate with your respective district members. We have a pilot program in which there is a template that Nicole and Peter has worked on that will be uploaded to SharePoint that you can access, and you can personalize it and send the information out to your different district members. So that should be really, really good. Help you with the work. There's no use in reinventing the wheel, right? We were taught that in law school. As well as lastly, we have some courtroom and technology study that will take place, that's continuing to take place. Brian and Peter are going to work with the consultant out of William and Mary. We believe will be really helpful for us to learn what we need in our building to have better technology in the courtroom and the conference rooms, and then the entire building, hopefully, eventually. And then lastly, some really fun information, and my children will be proud of me when I give this information, but we have gotten Twitter verified. The blue check. Yeah, that was your cue to like really, if my 10-year-old was here, he'd start dancing. He would have made up a dance for that. All right. And then we also have earlier this week, Peter, I don't know if you checked, I just checked. We had 133 subscribers on YouTube, and I just checked, we now have 134. That's another opportunity, y'all. Like, one at a time, right? That is my report. I appreciate you all listening, and I'm excited to see you all drive back to your respective places safely.
Thank
And we
you.
don't have any action items.
All right, appreciate that. I will call on David Allen, Chair of our Ethics Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. There's a great line from Woody Allen from the movie Annie Hall, where they're scheduling, it's a fundraiser, as I recall, for Adlai Stevenson, and they're scheduling the acts that have got to go on to raise the money. And they got two comics back to back, and Woody's the second comic, and he said, I can't go after this guy. And they said, well, why? I said, well, he's got them all laughing, and how much can they laugh? I mean, they laughed at Dorothy, they clapped for Dorothy, how are they going to clap for me? So I'm used to y'all not clapping, so just be okay. My feelings are not hurt, y'all are all clapped out. Thank you very much here in the back, I appreciate that. We met yesterday and had a great meeting, got through, no offense, Matt, got through about, in halftime, took for grievance to get its work done. That's typical of our efficiency in the Ethics Committee. We were happy and thrilled, frankly, to be back in person, although there was one downside of that. We have enjoyed, in the Zoom world, having our sisters and brothers from grievance able to participate via Zoom in our Ethics Committee meetings, and we miss that. It's been nice having y'all tune in and chime in. That's been a good thing for us. And although you won't be able to do that because of our scheduling system live, please let us know when y'all have comments, questions, or ideas about what ethics is doing. That's good for us, gives us different perspective, and we benefit from that. That's going to be particularly important for us. We have several really interesting matters that are percolating through ethics right now. I just want to give you a brief highlight of 5 matters that were sent back to committee for further study, because they all touch on interesting, I think, ethical questions and questions that need input from various practitioners to make sure we get them right. One is charging fees to opposing parties in residential real estate clients. This is going to be an interesting one where in a residential closing, whether the closing attorney is entitled to charge certain fees to the buyer or the seller, how that gets parceled through. The dual role of guardian ad litems, that's going to be an interesting question, we think. One that strikes home for me, given my past, there's a ethics inquiry about the use of email accounts for departing lawyers. If hypothetically one were to leave a law firm and move to another law firm, what is the obligation of both the departing lawyer and the law firm about maintaining that email account to protect the client's needs in that situation? Also, one that's an interesting one is the limited representation in criminal matters. This got some interesting commentary where an attorney makes a limited appearance in a criminal matter and the implications of that for the ongoing relationship and care of the client in that situation. And then one that we got a tremendous amount of comments on in the last quarter was on commenting publicly at CLEs and other places about client matters that are in the public record. For instance, if you were called upon to give a CLE and discuss a case you had just had and to discuss it, not revealing client secrets, but only revealing and commenting on material that was out in the public already and the limitations that are attendant there too. So really interesting matters. These will all be percolating along. We invite you to keep your eyes open for those. Those matters are all in committee right now. We do have a couple of matters, Madam Chairman, for the council to take up. We have 3 matters for adoption by the council. Those are 2020 FEO1, responding to negative online reviews, 2021 FEO2, which is lawyers' professional responsibility in identifying and avoiding counterfeit checks, and then 2019 FEO4, which is communications with judicial officials. This is one that's been around for quite some time. Some of you have commented on this in the past. It's gone through several iterations. That one, FEO, 2019 FEO 4, also involved the repeal or the withdrawal, I should say, of several other FEOs that were previously published. Those are listed in your papers, and we would ask that those be adopted by the council. That's our motion.
Okay, so your motion is to all three of those.
Yes, ma'am, unless there's a reason to take them individually, it would be my motion that we adopt them all three.
All right. Do we have a second? I don't know if one's necessary. We have it if we need it. Any questions, comments, discussion? Okay, as to all three of those, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Just one other final bit of business. As you all know, we have the ethics hotline. That has not diminished in activity during COVID. We had 1,125 calls into the ethics hotline for Suzanne and Nicole over the last quarter. That's been steady. That was about the same that we had this time last year. So coming in and out of COVID, it was also about the same that we had in 2019. So the level of inquiry by lawyers out there on issues has remained the same. We also had random audits this past quarter. And for the first time that I can ever remember, there were different items that were at the top of Ann's list for the audits. Usually it's reconciliation, and there were different matters this quarter. One of the reasons may have been we went to Rowan, and I'm not sure whether Darren is personally responsible for the change in the data there, but if he was, that's maybe good or maybe bad, but it was certainly him. And for those of you who are wondering where we'll be next quarter, we'll be visiting Mecklenburg and Gaston for random audits in the next quarter. Finally, Madam President, there was a ethics inquiry that came up yesterday as to potentially appointing an ad hoc committee to study both the economics and the ethics of holding a meeting in Asheville during the shoe sale at Tops. So we commend that to the council and to the executive committee for further review. Thank you, Madam President.
I will be glad to chair that committee. Thank you, and I'll ask Matt Smith to come up and give us the report of grievance. Oh. Is that for Matt or David?
I thought it was for me. Because David, take notes. I heard Ethics Committee say they took care of 5 matters or somewhere thereabouts. The Grievance Committee took care of 122. Ooh. So the Grievance Committee met and did a fine job as always. 69 files were dismissed. 1 lawyer was referred to the LAP program. 10 lawyers were referred to Trust Accounting Compliance Program. 5 received letters of caution. 5 received letters of warning. 9 received admonitions. 5 lawyers received reprimands. 3 lawyers received censures. 11 lawyers were referred to the Disciplinary Hearing Commission, and the chair on his own motion issued a temporary restraining order preventing firm from leaving. So that's the report.
I'll call on Marcy Armstrong for the report from issues.
I'm beginning to think we need to create a new subcommittee in issues as to why women love shoes so much. At a minimum, we should certainly ask Tops to be a sponsor, I think, the next time that we're in Asheville. Okay, so we have 4 very, very busy subcommittees and issues on the subcommittee studying the compensation of court-appointed defense counsel. That committee is chaired by Alan Cobb. The survey results have arrived, and that committee is in process of gathering that information, and they will report back to us their findings, I believe, in October. We have the subcommittee to study proposed regulatory change in other jurisdictions. That's chaired by Mark Enriquez. That committee has done a lot of work in gathering information from across this country as well as Canada, Ontario, I believe, as to what regulatory change that these different places have tried or are trying. At this point, the recommendation is that the officers appoint an ad hoc committee to study some of the recommendations coming out of the subcommittee. And I believe that is what we will be doing between now and October, to study as we all know about the legal needs assessment that that has come out of the Equal Access to Justice Commission. So we'll be looking at ways, including the possibility of paraprofessional license, very targeted, limited areas potentially, and maybe even other ways that we can help those that do not have access to justice to gain that access, because that's important. We all want that to happen. So that doesn't require any kind of a.
No.
Okay. And then another committee, the Subcommittee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and that is chaired by Todd Brown. That committee is, again, doing a lot of work and spent some time yesterday, going through a list of potential recommendations. And hopefully by October, that committee will have some recommendations for the Issues Committee. Lastly, a very, very busy subcommittee on secure leave, chaired by Gordon Brown. Survey, a very successful survey was sent out. And how many responses did we get, Gordon? How many responses? How many?
900.
I mean, almost 1,000 responses to a survey. I've never heard of anything that, and a lot of really good comments. So they've got a lot of material to work through, and they're going to sift through that. And at some point, they'll come back to us with a recommendation. But thank you, all of you, all the committees, for such your hard work. Appreciate it. That's the report of the Issues Committee.
Thank you, Marcy. Now we'll turn to Warren Savage for the report of the Distinguished Service Award Committee.
Thank you, Barbara. This time I'd like to move to go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A2 to prevent the premature disclosure of an honorary award.
So we
Do I
have
hear a
that
motion?
motion. I have a second. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Back in, and before I do the nomination, Suzanne Lever, who is our invaluable staff member, went through the awards that have been awarded from the beginning to now, and broke down the counties from which and the judicial districts from which all the awards have been, the recipients of all the awards came from. And towards that end, I'm going to be, there are some obviously that are overrepresented compared to others. And I am going to be contacting you. I might get John, my vice chair, to help me do that, to contact some of you guys to sort of roust up some award recipients. This is a statewide award that we want to represent the folks that are the unsung heroes and might not get the statewide attention and may only be the sort of the local heroes like Jeff Holt. Well, Jeff's got a lot of folks know him all over the place, but anyway, so I will be getting in touch with you. All right. So at this time, I'd like to move with the approval, prior approval of the executive committee, that the council approve the nomination of candidate A that I discussed in closed session. The presentation of the John B. McMillan Distinguished Service Award, subject to our normal due diligence checks.
This is a motion from the committee. Any questions, comments, or discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right. Warren, I think the presentations were wonderful last
Oh,
night,
they
and I
sure were.
thank you to all of you that did those presentations.
And I didn't bring up, we've got, we got a bunch out of the way last night, but we also have 3 or 4 in the wings. I think those are actually going to be done more in person. And we're trying to get those done in person in their local bars, a few of them. So I won't go through that list because there's a lot of them too.
All right. Still here. What about the John Do you see John and Ron? Our next is a report from our nominating committee and our past presidents who, there we go. All right. Once you, I guess, become past president, you get to sit on the very back row. And so, but I will ask John Silverstein, can you make the report from the nominating committee? He is.
Stop that man.
I am sorry I didn't recognize you and Ron Gibson as special guest, and if that's what caused you to leave, I'm very apologetic.
I don't know who I peed off, but I guess in the spirit of Catherine Jean, you heard the report last night. But the nominating committee consists of the 5 past presidents, in addition to the immediate past president, Colin Willoughby, which would be Ron Gibson, Margaret Hunt, Mark Merritt, Gray Wilson, and me. And in a very easy process, we decided that for the offices of Secretary Treasurer, it should be Alice Mine. Darren automatically moves into the office of President. We recommend that Marcy be the president-elect, and the nominating committee has selected Todd Brown to be the nominee for vice president. That's the report of the nominating committee.
Thank you.
I'm leaving.
Thank you, and congratulations again. Our local newspaper has a little feature that it does about hellos and goodbyes, businesses that are opening and businesses that are closing. And in that same spirit, I wanted to ask all our new counselors that are new from 20 or 21 to just sort of stand up, because we're all getting to see you kind of for the first time this meeting. So stand up so we can give you an official hello. We said goodbye last night to Fern Simeon. It would be her last meeting, and Office of Counsel is also losing Deputy Counsel Josh Wathall. I'm not sure if he's already in here, but he is leaving to go to private practice. He's joining the firm of Nelson Mullins, and Gray Wilson asked us to put it on the record that he was not responsible for that, although he's extremely pleased. So if you see Josh, please wish him well and tell him that we will miss him greatly. Have one other item, if you'll just bear with me, and that is Colin served much of his term virtually, and while we recognized him, we were not able to, well, there's Josh. We'll just say it, turn around and give him an applause for all that he's done. Josh, you will be missed, and we wish you well. All right. So Colin, I have for you the resolution that we read in an earlier meeting, but we now have it framed and just want to present that to you. Isn't that lovely?
Thank you.
Is there any other business to come before the council? I thank you for your hard work. I hope you have a great weekend. Go in peace. We are adjourned.